Ham Radio Adventure Guy.
Tank Radio.
Ham Radio Adventure Guy.
Tank Radio.
Ham Radio Adventure Guy.
Tank Radio.
You don't think I came prepared?
And we're back. So my ham radio question is, what is the biggest mistake that you learned from in amateur radio?
The biggest mistake I learned from an amateur radio was not trying new things sooner.
Oh.
For the longest time, I was sideband only forever, and I just absolutely refused to do CW. And once I started doing CW, I become obsessed with it. And now I make way more contacts because I got sideband, I got CW, I got digital, I got everything because I'm trying new things. And the biggest mistake was being scared to learn something new because old dogs can learn new tricks.
I like that. That's a good one. Well, thank you.
Hey, thank you very much.
My name is Josh Nass. My call sign is KI6NAZ. My channel is Ham Radio Crash Course. My biggest mistake that I learned the most from, I'm going to give you first what I was told was my biggest mistake, and that was accidentally operating on 14.300 megahertz on field day. I was told that was my biggest mistake ever. I didn't learn anything other than don't use that frequency ever. My thing that I learned the most from was it was actually my first Summits on the Air attempt, and I had brought out a 9-to-1 Unun, the Aruchi. It's a ham club out of Hawaii. And that was so it's a 9-to-1, meaning random wire antenna, requires a tuner. And I had all these boxes, and I'm trying to set up on this summit, and I couldn't make it work. My mast broke, my fiberglass mast. I couldn't get the antenna to tune, and as such, I could not get on the air. And I spent all that time hiking only to have a failure. And so my lessons learned from that is simplify my kit, pare it down to what I know is successful, and take it to the field, like a park down the street, get your failures out over there before you fail on a summit after making a huge hike. So there's my lesson learned.
Have you doubled up anything in the kit to make sure you might have one or two of these things?
Always double up on coax adapters, of course, but also I just don't usually operate with extra things, so I try not to have a tuner unless the tuner's in the radio. I like to have an internal battery in the radio. It's one less thing to forget. If you have a secondary battery, that's great. That's just more operating time. Microphones, maybe have an extra microphone, but most of the time I just make sure that the kit is tested before I go in the field and anything.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thank you, Frank.
Hey, this is Jim, WT1W from FEP Labs Radio. Don't go cheap on antennas. When I got into ham radio, I started buying every gimmick antenna there was, and they all sucked, and then I bought the next one, and it still sucked. And I finally bought a DX Commander, and it was great. So the difference is night and day.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jim.
You're welcome.
And thank you for the Dr. Pepper.
You're welcome. This was a paid interview.
Howdy, everybody. Steve here, KM9G. Frank just asked me, what is a mistake that I made in ham radio? And I will tell you, the mistake that I made in ham radio was letting the grumpy old farts get to me when I first started in the hobby. And I shouldn't have done that because they were wrong. And put a wire in the air and make contacts is all that's important. Have fun. Thank you, Frank.
Name's John Crook. Call is N9UPC. My channel is Communications and Cigars. And the thing I think I learned from the most in radio is to appreciate your Elmer. That's what I would have to say is the most on there. I had a great Elmer. His name was Bill Jablonski, W9NNS. Bill's now a silent key. But I will tell you, I didn't realize how important it was to have an Elmer, because I was like, I was like a teenage kid. I was dumb and smart all in one, right, and all that. But no, I would have to say that would be the most thing, is to really appreciate your elders and continue to learn from them.
Hey guys, Jason, KM4ACK, and my channel is also KM4ACK. So Tank has asked me what was the biggest mistake that I had in ham radio, and it wasn't really a mistake. It was more of just one of those things that I didn't know what I didn't know. I carried a Baofeng for way too long. I just couldn't understand why I would spend more money on an HT, and boy was that a mistake. The first good HT that I bought was the Yaesu FT3, I believe. And that opened up so much for me. It opened up APRS for me. It opened up the world of digital modes for me, and it opened up just what was possible with a better HT. Now, I'm not knocking Baofengs. I've still got about half a dozen of them that get used from time to time. But I wish I'd have bought a better HT sooner.
That's a good point. I'm kind of in that boat. I'm going to be a little frank right now. I have Baofengs. I have Anytones, which is a step up, so I'm like 150-ish. But I haven't hit the $300, $400 mark for HTs. And I'm kind of feeling left out a bit with the APRS.
It will just open things up for you, or at least it did for me, and I wish I'd have done that sooner.
Something to think about. Thank you, Jason.
My name is Bill, Kilo Zero Whiskey Hotel Whiskey, and my YouTube channel is Ham Radio Tectonics. Come on over. The biggest mistake that I made, that I'm glad I made, was starting QRP in the lower end of the solar cycle. Now, I recommend you don't do that. Buy a 100-watt radio and learn from there. But I'm glad I made that mistake because I had to learn so much about antennas and propagation in order to make a contact. So technically, that's a mistake, but it worked out for me.
Okay, I'm KJ4ULZ, Julie Faust.
I'm Vaughn, KG4VET. We are
Hoda Power.
Hoda Power.
And our channel, we have Facebook, and you can get us
And
on
YouTube.
Hoda Power and YouTube. You just Hoda Power 01.
Yep, we go
And-
live from the park on YouTube and Facebook.
In the weekends, and we do a home park
yeah, on the middle of the week
in the middle of the
sometime.
week. We
do
have a great time.
Have a great time.
If you like to watch ridiculousness and me harass him, that's the best time.
Well, we're trying to get some radio involved too.
We a little bit, just as much as we can. So I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the biggest thing that we've done that I learned the most from
Yeah.
is checking that band plan.
Oh my gosh. She's always out of band.
You're always out of
My
band.
fault.
Yes, exactly.
Biggest thing I've learned from doing Parks on the Air that I should have involved her a long time ago.
Aw, that's sweet.
You know, if we would have done this, we'd have been a lot further along.
Oh, actually, you know what he should have done is just taken me to a park sooner.
Yeah.
That's what he should have done.
So she's only had her license for a year. I've been doing this crap for almost 20 years, and
Yeah.
finally I got her to tag along with me. So
It took a hot minute, but a little slow to the uptake. But
we're having a great time
We're
at
having a great time.
HamCation. Thanks, Frank.
Steve, KO4AFL, that's KO4AFL Ham Radio on YouTube. The biggest mistake I've learned from in ham radio is, well, not checking the band plan. My first POTA activation, I was at the edge of the general band as a general. Was I out of band? Probably if you look at it. And just not getting involved with my YouTube brothers sooner. You know, these guys have taken good care of me. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to all of them, and make sure you subscribe to my channel. KO4AFL Ham Radio, 73.
Robert, I already
Frank.
got. Well, what's your channel?
Digital Rancher.
Digital Rancher.
Frank, what's your channel?
My channel, Take Radio! I had to do it.
All right.
I want to know what mistake you learned the most from in amateur radio.
You know, I thought a lot about this.
You did?
And the funny thing is, I have a mistake that I continue to make again and again and again and again.
Oh, this is a
and
good
so
one.
I'm not learning from it, right? But I know I do it, and I do it anyhow. And I did this my very first field day, whenever I packed up the gator and did field day all by myself on the back of the property.
Nice.
And I do it today whenever I come to Hamfests. I pack too much crap. I always
We're all
bring
guilty of this.
Too much crap, and I know it, and I still do it. I can't stop. I got a problem, Frank. That's my answer. How about you? What's
Me?
what mistake have you made that you've learned the most from?
I am going to go with getting the measurements right. The whole measure twice, cut once, but it's not just on that measurement. It's to understand your measurements in the beginning. Because it's happened a couple of times, but on one of my latest videos, I was trying to do a dipole antenna, and I was trying to quickly reuse the measurements from the end-fed half wave. Well, in the end-fed half wave, your measurement is from the end all the way, and that is your half wave. But when you do a dipole half wave, you move the connector to the center.
Yeah, so you ended up making a full wave antenna.
Pretty much. Pretty much, and it wasn't resonant where we would think it should have been, and I just it hurt, and I just had to give up the project, and I learned just to get that right. And for me, if I failed to where I have to really start again, I just want to shelve it for a bit and come back to it.
Hey, walking away and then coming back is always a good strategy.
Yep.
Right? Clear your head, walk away, come back.
You want to know what my most common mistake I do, and I do it all the time?
Sure, yeah.
Cold starter joints.
I witnessed that.
Yes.
I witnessed that.
I look like a solder joint's good, but then later it breaks or it's not solid, and I had to go back and do it again.
So,
I'm Tim, NW9F with the Gray Man POTA channel, and my probably biggest mistake that I think I made when I was younger, earlier in the hobby, was actually kind of maybe trusting people just a little too much, just assuming that, you know, just because they're a ham radio operator, that they're not going to try to take advantage of my lack of knowledge. So I would always say, make sure you're making a good informed decision before you invest your money into something. You know, there's nothing wrong with used equipment, but make sure that you buy something from a person that you can trust, have a way of testing it, and do that before you actually spend the money on doing that.
Yeah, Bob Hughes, KD4 BMG HOA ham. So Tank Radio asked me what's the mistake that I've had in ham radio, you know, that I guess maybe that I regret or I would do differently. Learn the most. There we go, learn the most. And I'm going to combine it with being a YouTuber of this as well. I think this is relevant in both ham radio and YouTubing. Don't try to bite off so much, you know, more than you can chew. Take it in small increments. Ham radio is huge. You know, you've heard people describe it as, you know, it's a hobby within a hobby, or it's a hobby within a group of hobbies. So, you know, if you like DMR, great. Tackle DMR before you move on to 25 other things. If you like HF and QRP, you know, you can get so bogged down going 1,000 different directions, you never get anything to the finish line. I've had to work at getting fewer things to the finish line instead of having too many irons in the fire. That's the one thing that I've learned. Does that answer the question?
That answered the question. Thank you very much.
You bet. Great talking with you, Tank.
Dan, WD4DAN, front end overload. Check me out on the YouTube. What is the mistake I learned the most from ham radio? The lapse of me getting my general license. I was licensed in '95 as a tech, waited to 2022 to get my general, and that's when I learned about POTA, which got me back onto the air. That lapse in time, I wish I didn't do it. I wish I got involved in the HF scene a little bit sooner. Would have had more fun sooner.
I think so. My name's Jamie, call sign Whiskey Delta 4, Juliet Mike. I'm part of Front End Overload, and my mistake is not getting into POTA sooner. POTA has been great for me and all that good stuff, and he has got me into it, and I should have got my license a lot sooner. Thank you.
So we got awesome Mike. I told him if I saw him again, he's going to get on camera, and we happen to run each other in the swap meet area. So my question for the Hamfest is, and you're going to be the first one I'm going to ask this to, is what is the mistake you made in amateur radio that you learned the most from?
This was horrible. I was at the Toledo Hamfest in Toledo, Ohio, and I bought a used Ameritron 80-something, 80B maybe amp. Well, I took it home, tried to plug it in, didn't work. So I sent it off to this woman who fixes amps, who shall be nameless, because she doesn't do it anymore. And she put about, quite a bit of work into it, and called me back and said, hey, to get this back, it's going to cost you more than you paid for it. I paid $400 for the amp, which I thought was a great deal, but it wasn't. She says, send me another $600 and I'll send your amp back. And I said, you know what, just keep it. Just keep it. I don't want it.
So the lesson learned is to try it out before you bring it home from a swap meet?
Try it before you buy it, plug it in, make sure it works, and then hand over the cash. And you're good. That's it.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
Frank, thank you for everything you do for ham radio. It's always great to have you, see you around, so good stuff, bud.
Thank you, and thank you for the cigars today.
Not a problem. You deserve them.
Hi, I'm Mike, N8YO, and I would say that the biggest mistake that I have made in amateur radio was getting married and getting out of amateur radio for 12 years.
Honestly, I thought it would be coming down to winter field day.
going down to Winterfield Day in Galveston Beach and parking my car at O'Hare and having it stolen. There you go. Use that one.
Name is Ken Terrell. Call sign's Alpha Charlie Zero Tango Golf. I'm from Greenville, Texas, about an hour east of Dallas. Here's my answer. It's not one single mistake, it's a whole series of mistakes. When I first got licensed in Colorado in 2006 and got into HF, I kept trying to find the magic antenna and the magic coax and the magic parts because I was fighting pretty severe noise in the. I lived in the suburbs and had pretty severe RF interference, and I kept trying to find the magic thing I could buy that would fix that. And I tried different antennas, I tried different coax, I tried everything except the simple stuff. Eventually, I decided I was just going to put up a half-wave dipole, center-fed dipole, and put ferrites on everything and started systematically fighting this problem. And over the course of a year or so, I got my noise down to something manageable and got on the air. But it wasn't one single mistake. It was this whole mindset of I can buy something to fix this problem.
So where did you end up putting the ferrites?
Everywhere.
The coax cable at
coax, the input to the power supply, the cables between the computer or the computer and the radio. If it stood still, I put a ferrite on it.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm Paula Olam. I'm KM4ACK's wife. And the biggest mistake that I had in my mind about ham radio is the distance and the people. I had no clue that there is such a brotherhood and sisterhood inside the YouTubers group. And that is something that's blessed me immensely the past couple of years since I've become more in tune and willing to be a part of it. So if you're not in ham radio and you're not in YouTube, then go do it. You'll find a lot of new friends.
Just come out and say hi at a meetup.
Just come out and say hi at a meetup. It's fun.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ron, W4ORH. And the thing I've probably learned the most in ham radio, one of the biggest failures is you want to measure 3 times and cut once. The wire antennas are unforgiving when they get too short. Then you have this glob and you do soldering and all that fun stuff to reattach them. So that's my suggestion for how to have a happier day in ham radio.
Thank you. And I have a second one. What did you do yesterday to ham it forward?
Oh, well, you guys, if you've watched any of the other channels, you probably know that I have an older Kenwood that I haven't been using in some time. And so we have a new gentleman that he's been in amateur radio for several years, had his technician license. Yesterday he passed his general. And so when he came over here yesterday and talking with us, he said he didn't have a radio. And so I presented him with a radio that he could use, and it's his. So that's the way we ham it forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ron, and doing that for the hobby, and thank you for coming on and imparting a little bit of wisdom.
Okay. Thanks, Frank.
Okay. Well, Tank, my name is Al or Alan, and my call is November 2, Delta Uniform India, N2 DUI. It appears like it's a vanity call sign, but it's not. I got this from the FCC when I upgraded at the time from technician to general many years ago. I've been licensed since I was a teenager. The one mistake that I made a lot of them along the way. That's how you learn. I'm an educator. I've taught young kids, but myself as a young kid, one mistake I made was not to try to pass on the hobby to my peers. And the young kids, I like to see them show the radio equipment, demonstrate it for their friends to get them interested. Because sometimes we go the solo route and we get so consumed on what we want to learn and focused on that we don't invite others into it. And that's very important. As an older ham now, I constantly am trying to promote the younger generations to get into it, because there's going to come a time when we're not going to be here anymore. We need to pass the baton on to the next generation and keep this hobby going. No matter what it is, whether you do digital modes, you do CW, you do phone, whatever the POTAs that you do, I try to reach out and make contacts to POTA stations so that they get these calls into the log, because I think it's very important to keep it going. Now, I don't have a big station. I work a small HF station out of my condo, but I'm also very active on VHF, UHF with DMR and analog, and I show my stuff around to others when I can, because it's really important. We got to save this hobby and keep it going.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much for putting me on here. It's an honor to be on your YouTube, and I want to praise you and all the other YouTubers that are promoting this hobby of ham radio that we so dearly love and carrying it on. So thank you very much, Tank.
Hi, I'm Robbie, W1RCP, and that's where you can find my channel, W1RCP-Ham Radio, POTA, and projects. And the question is, what is the lesson of a mistake that I've made in ham radio where I learned a lesson? And I think back to the handmade Pixie 2 transceiver that I had. It's, milliwatt QRPP transmitter, and I took it out, hooked it to power, and left the key plugged into it, and wasn't paying attention to what was being tossed into my vehicle at the time. So it's on. There's no antenna connected. And I never would have thought that 500 milliwatts would smoke a little teeny tiny transistor, but I let the smoke out. And come to find out, it wasn't even the stuff being, even if I hadn't thrown stuff in the vehicle, my J38 has the shorting bar. The shorting bar was shorted by accident from stuff rustling around, and I smoked the Pixie and couldn't fix it. And so the biggest lesson learned is if you're going to hook power to a rig, make sure there's an antenna hooked to it just in case it accidentally gets keyed.
Oh, name Dave, AC3AV, big POTA activator, Bonita Springs, Florida. Letting CW drop. I dropped CW. I got my first ticket in 1980, and then we had to get 12 words a minute. And I used it a little bit for moon bounce and other things, but then I let it drop. And I let it drop for probably 20 years. And I should never have done that. And now I'm back. Yeah, not quite as well as I was, but I'm back.
You're doing it more now since it's
yes.
not a requirement of the test?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I try to do at least a few contacts on most POTA activations. But of late, I've been collecting POTA sites. So I'm kind of like doing rove in and out quick, because I've got an ATAS on the car now, and that makes a lot of difference. But I really enjoy just sitting at the bench, like we did at the POTA activation, and doing as many as I can. And I really enjoy meeting all the POTA folks. They're a great bunch of guys.
Yeah, we had a fun time over there at the Toad's POTA Hangout.
And the YouTubers.
Yep.
You guys are a real plus to the POTA community, but to the amateur radio community. I would have spent far less money if it wasn't for you guys.
Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate you coming on.
Well, nice meeting you for the Resilience and 8th time. So